The mountains were old enough to remember when the sky was young. Sharp peaks stabbed the heavens with jagged stone, their faces carved by storms and centuries. Snow clung to every shadow as if afraid to fall. The wind raced through narrow passes, lifting loose ice crystals into silver clouds that moved like spirits. Above all of it, an eagle ruled. He glided with wings stretched wide, each feather catching the breath of the world. Light slid along the bronze sheen of his plumage. His eyes, gold and unwavering, scanned the chaos of rocks and snow below. Nothing escaped them. Not a twitch of fur, not the slightest ripple of movement. His heart beat slowly, powerfully. Every beat a declaration. This sky is mine. He angled his wings and felt the updraft surge beneath him. The air here was alive, muscular, a river he commanded without touching the ground. From this height, a man would see nothing but specks. The eagle saw everything. There, among the patchwork of rock and dead grass, a marmot poked its head from a burrow. Its whiskers flicked. It sniffed the wind. The eagle's pupils narrowed. Gravity answered his unspoken order. He folded his wings, letting the sky fall around him. Air roared past. The mountains raced upward to meet him. His speed multiplied, invisible, terrifying. The marmot noticed too late. Impact. Snow erupted. Bones cracked. Life ended cleanly. The eagle lifted his catch and carried it to a nearby rock shelf. He ate with calm precision, tearing flesh into strips, swallowing without wasting movement. The warmth of the marmot's body faded into the cold morning. When he finished, he cleaned his beak against rough stone and looked toward the highest cliff. His nest, a fortress of branches wedged between two teeth of granite. The wind roared past it like a warning, but the eagle had never feared wind. What he feared now was the silence inside that nest. Once another shape had perched there beside him, feathers darker, sleeker. Her call had been sharp and fierce. Together they had claimed territories from the next ridge to the Black Lake. Together they had raised chicks. Together they had flown into storms for the thrill of defying lightning. Now, she was gone. A single gunshot had turned the sky into a grave. The eagle stood motionless, staring into the empty space where she should be. A hollow nothingness that felt heavier than any rock on these mountains. He shook his feathers, pushing grief deep beneath instinct. Hunger, wind, danger. Those were things he understood. Loss was not. He launched himself from the perch and climbed into the air, wings straining. The sky welcomed him the only way it knew how, with cold and silence. But silence did not last. Clouds gathered on the far horizon. Thick rolling masses bruised purple and iron gray. Thunder rumbled from within them like a giant waking. The air sharpened, smelling of metal and tension. A storm was building. Not a gentle one. Most birds would flee for shelter. The eagle did the opposite. He turned toward the storm, wings slicing the thinning light. The first gust struck like a shove, but he rode it easily. The second gust, stronger, only made him climb higher. Lightning flashed, splintering sky into white veins. The thunder followed, loud enough to shake the bones of the earth. The eagle did not flinch. Storms reminded him he was alive. Storms were where he proved himself worthy of the sky. He shot upward into the boiling dark, a bronze arrow cutting into the belly of the clouds. Rain hammered his wings. Turbulence tried to rip him from the air. He twisted, fought the wind, mastered it. For a moment he hovered there, surrounded by electric violence, framed by fire in the clouds, a king challenging a god. Thunder answered. Lightning struck close. Close enough for heat to brush his feathers, close enough for fear to ask a question. He ignored fear. The eagle screamed into the storm, a wild, furious sound that vanished into thunder, but did not disappear. It lived inside the lightning now, carried further than any wing could fly. The mountains echoed his defiance. He was alone, but he was not defeated. As the storm swallowed him, the sky waited. Because every king, even of the clouds, eventually meets a challenger. and the storm was only the beginning. Night did not gently replace day, it invaded. The storm the eagle had challenged in the heights now descended upon the mountains like an army. Clouds crushed the sky into darkness. Lightning flickered behind them like torches in a siege. Thunder rolled in long, hungry growls. The eagle rode the wind down from the storm wall, wings trembling from strain. He had defied the sky long enough. Even he knew when to retreat. For now, he flared his wings wide, catching a fierce gust, and glided toward a jagged ridge to rest. But the mountain had other plans. A blinding flash split the night. The ground shook as lightning struck the peak, stone exploding into a shower of sparks and shards. The eagle banked sharply, winds ripping at his feathers. He dropped lower, dangerously low, where the wind tumbled in chaotic swirls around cliffs and needle-like pines. He aimed for a dead tree clinging to the rock face. Its bark was blackened from past storms. He landed heavily, claws gripping deep. Rain hammered the mountainside. Wind roared like a river of ghosts. Through the sheets of water, the valley below flickered with strange light, orange and artificial. The eagle blinked, narrowing his legendary eyes. Not lightning. Headlamps. Machines crawled along a narrow cut through the forest. Trucks roaring far below, tires grinding mud and stone. Their engines didn't blend with the storm. They fought it. They challenged it. The eagle watched from his dark throne high above. Men jumped down from the trucks, voices harsh, tossing cigarettes and curses into the wind. They moved with ownership, not fear. They unloaded large crates and stacked them near a clearing, cages of thick iron bars. Inside them, movement. The eagle's talons tightened. A lynx, lean and feral, paced inside one cage, eyes glowing with terror and rage. A goshawk beat its wings bloody against another. A badger snarled, teeth clacking against metal. Poachers. The eagle remembered them. Not these exact men, but their kind. They had left his world bleeding. His mate had dropped from the sky because human laughter echoed beneath the gunshot. The storm could not drown that memory. One poacher slammed a cage and shouted something about the reserve line and big money. Another pointed upward, to the cliffs, to the very heights where the eagle perched. He saw their lips form the word eagle. They saw profit. They saw a trophy. They did not see a king. The eagle fluffed his feathers against the rain, heart drumming a slow, murderous beat. He could dive from here and end a throat in 2 seconds. He could shred eyes and wrists and watch their fear finally outweigh their arrogance. But he did not move. He waited. Predators don't strike at noise. Predators strike at weakness. The poachers set up a canvas shelter, lights glowing underneath like a wound in the dark. They laughed through chattering teeth, drunk on adrenaline and ignorance. Thunder rolled again, louder. Lightning cracked the sky. Closer. A gust slammed the eagle's perch. The tree bent like a bow, groaning. The eagle's wings opened wide instinctively to keep balance. Below, one poacher looked up and froze. Away up there, see that shape? It's him. Big one. Dawn, another growled. Birds can't see at night like we can. They couldn't have been more wrong. The eagle saw perfectly. As lightning flashed again, he stared down at the men, and the men stared up at him. For a brief moment, predator and parasite measured each other through the storm. The poachers retreated into their canvas shelter, unaware the night had just chosen its sides. Rain intensified, turning the clearing into a swamp of water and mud. Steam rose from the cages as terrified animals panted hard, trapped between cold bars and colder fate. The eagle waited for the storm to speak. His feathers glistened with furious patience. He knew this land. These cliffs, these winds. The mountains remembered him. And when the thunder finally cracked above his wings again, it sounded like approval. The eagle launched into the storm, not away from the danger, but directly into it. A bronze blade slicing through black rain, because something had to answer the violence of humans. Tonight, that answer would wear wings. Stormlight flickered like a dying lantern as the eagle fought his way up the mountainside again. The wind no longer pushed. It pulled, dragging him toward the teeth of the cliffs, threatening to smash him into the rock. He twisted his wings, one feather width from disaster. But he survived. He always survived. Lightning lit the sky just long enough to reveal a narrow ledge ahead, a vein of stone halfway up a cliff face that rose like a fortress wall. The eagle dove toward it and landed hard, talons scraping sparks against granite. His chest heaved. Water streamed down his beak and dripped from his wingtips. His lungs burned, not from fear, but from fury. The poachers had cages full of stolen life. His mate had died by men like them. This storm had delivered the truth. The mountain wasn't only his kingdom. It was his responsibility. He shook off rain, feathers fanning open like wet bronze knives. Then, a sound. Not the storm, not the rocks cracking from lightning. Wings, large wings. The eagle turned sharply, throat tightening with instinct. Shadows took shape above him. A silhouette gliding gracefully through the rain, using the storm instead of fighting it. A golden eagle, like him, but younger. She landed a few meters away, claws finding purchase on the slick stone with practiced ease. Feathers smooth and radiant, eyes bright amber, movements sharp as a blade. She spared the storm a single glance. Then she looked at him, direct, evaluating, unafraid. Her stare asked questions older than words. Why are you alone? Who did you lose? Do you still command the sky? The male eagle said nothing, but his feathers bristled with challenge. He angled his body toward her slightly. A warning. He had no room in his life for distractions. Not with humans poisoning his mountains. But she didn't leave. Instead, she stepped closer, slow, deliberate, and let out a quiet churring call. Not dominance, not threat. Recognition. A king without a queen. A cliff without a nest. A storm without purpose. Until now. The male eagle's eyes softened, only for a moment. Then his gaze snapped downward, movement below, lanterns bobbing through the dark trees, poachers moving deeper into the mountains. The young female followed his stare. The moment she saw the cages and the guns glinting through the branches, her feathers rose in a ripple of fear, quickly drowned by anger. Her sound this time was lower, a growl woven into a chirp. There are enemies here. The male answered with silence, the kind that carries iron inside it. He moved to the edge of the ledge. Rain hammered against his wings, flattening them briefly before he tensed and held the storm back with strength alone. She stepped beside him, shoulder to shoulder. Lightning burst overhead, turning their silhouettes into two sharp crowns against the clouds. Two eagles. Two storms. Two wills tightening like talons around the same enemy. Below, the poachers fired a warning shot into the air, testing their rifles through the storm. Sparks flew from a rock, not far from where the eagles perched. The female flinched. The male didn't. He had stood tall under storms far more dangerous than lightning. He looked at her deeply, and in that glance she understood. Join me, or leave my sky forever. She chose to stay. Without another sound, they launched themselves into the raging air. Two shadows swallowed by wind, streaking toward the valley where humans walked with greed in their hands. The storm swallowed them like a pair of thunderbolts returning to the clouds, and the mountains exhaled, as if relieved that their sky was no longer defended by one eagle, but by two. The storm died as suddenly as it was born. Rain faded into mist. Thunder retreated behind the peaks like a defeated army. But the danger remained. Below, the poachers' camp churned with new urgency. Headlamps cut across the dark like searching eyes. Men shoved ammunition into magazines, strapped knives to their hips, slung rifles over their shoulders. They hadn't been scared away. They were preparing to hunt the hunters. The wind carried their voices up the cliffside. They're nesting somewhere on these ridges. Golden eagles, protected species, worth the risk. We take them. The boss pays triple. Their greed was loud enough for the mountain to hear. The male eagle watched from a high perch, feathers sleeked tight against the cold. The young female stood next to him, tense, alert, pupils narrowed to predatory slits. They had fought storms together. Now, They would fight men. But humans were not like storms. Storms were honest. Morning broke pale and cold. The mountain air tasted sharp, like iron and pine. Thin clouds drifted along the slopes, creating shifting curtains the poachers moved behind, shadows with guns. The eagles took advantage of altitude, their greatest defense. They soared low along a ridge, scanning the valley. The male spotted movement, a herd of chamois, nimble mountain goats with sharp hooves and sharper instincts, grazing near a cliff. The female flicked her wings. Food first. They needed strength for what was coming. The male dove with purpose, choosing a young chamois on the outer edge of the herd. At the last instant, the youngster turned, reflexive agility, and the eagle missed by a talon's width, slicing only fur. Tumble of snow, scrape of claws on rock. The female swept in behind him, silent, precise. She struck the chamois's hind leg, not to kill, but to destabilize. The animal stumbled. The male turned midair, impossibly fast, and hit with full force. Talons drove through hide. The mountains echoed with the brief cry of prey being claimed by the sky's rightful owners. The wolves miles away would smell blood soon, but by then the eagles would be fed and gone. The two birds tore strips from the carcass, quick and efficient. The female paused once to glance at the male, not demanding, not judging, learning him. He pretended not to notice, but his feathers softened slightly. Then, a sound shattered the moment. Crack. A gunshot. Echo bouncing through stone. Both eagles froze, then launched into the air. Snow plumed where the bullet landed a heartbeat later. Right where the male had stood. Below, a man cursed. Almost had him. They're close. They had been spotted. Hunted. The male eagle's wings stiffened. The bullet's shockwave had bruised muscle. He forced it to move anyway, refusing to show weakness. The female climbed higher, circling, calling for him to follow. He did, but slower. The poachers fanned out. Two moved upslope. One knelt, studying talon marks in bloodied snow. They just fed. They won't leave far. Good. More predictable prey. Prey. That word struck deeper than the bullet. The eagles landed on a remote pinnacle overlooking a deep ravine. The wind tore up the slope, cold and fast. Perfect for lift. The female chirred questioningly, "Are you hurt?" The male snapped his beak once, defying the concern. "I fly. I fight. I live." But the storm had taken its toll. The poachers had now smelled their trail, and the mountains had begun their brutal examination. Are you still the king? Or have you already fallen and refused to accept it? Far below, a poacher raised his rifle again, scope glinting in the weak sun. Another shot, the round slicing air between the two eagles. The female shrieked in alarm. The male launched toward the shooter, pure rage controlling his wings. He was a streak of bronze fury, talons open, murder in his blood. But another shot fired. He twisted midair, just in time, barely. The bullet grazed his wing, tearing feathers. Pain sparked hot. He crashed into a juniper bush, clinging to the cliff. Snow poured over him. The world spun. He heard the female cry, a furious, terrified sound, and the rapid stomping of boots on rock. He forced himself up. One wing dragged awkwardly. The hunters were climbing fast. They smelled victory in his weakness. The female appeared above him, circling, refusing to leave him. He called up to her, "Go! Live! The mountain needs at least one ruler." But she dove closer, refusing his command, eyes blazing like lightning trapped in amber. She would not abandon a king. Together they faltered upward, into thinning air, into colder wind, into danger that had not yet shown its teeth. The poachers shouted below, scrambling after them, and the mountain watched, deciding whether to favor wings or bullets in the war that had finally begun.